This video delves into the shocking and disturbing case of a young woman who was kidnapped, raped, and eventually met a tragic end, all while the justice system struggled to provide her with the support and protection she desperately needed. The case of Rachel Timmerman is a complex and haunting one, filled with twists and turns that will leave you questioning the very fabric of our justice system. In 1995, a 19-year-old Michigan woman named Rachel Timmerman was kidnapped and raped in the woods after attending a card party, a social gathering that would ultimately lead to her disappearance.
What makes this case even more disturbing is that she managed to escape from her captor, only to end up in a situation that would put her own freedom at risk.
The events that unfolded after her initial escape are a testament to the complexities of the case and the challenges that Rachel faced in the aftermath of her traumatic experience. The man responsible for Rachel's nightmare was Marvin Charles Gabrion II, a drifter with a growing criminal record who had spent years moving through the rural communities of western Michigan.
Gabrion had prior run-ins with law enforcement for assault and other offenses, and people who crossed his path often described him as volatile and threatening.
He first encountered Rachel in the Muskegon County area, and by the time their paths converged at that card party, Gabrion had already zeroed in on the young woman. Law enforcement would later learn that his history of predatory behavior stretched back years, and that several people in the region had reason to be afraid of him long before Rachel's name ever entered a police report. You're watching Dark Verdict, where we investigate the cases that haunt us, the ones that leave us with more questions than answers and a deep sense of unease. After the assault in the woods, Rachel learned she was pregnant as a result of the rape. She gave birth to a daughter she named Shannon. Despite the horrific circumstances of the child's conception, Rachel was determined to raise her baby and to hold Gabrion accountable for what he had done. She reported the rape to law enforcement in Muskegon County and cooperated with prosecutors as they assembled a sexual assault case against Gabrion. A court date was scheduled, and Rachel was expected to serve as the key witness for the prosecution.
That upcoming testimony made her a direct threat to Gabrion's freedom, and it placed a target on her back that she may not have fully understood.
As the investigation progressed, a disturbing pattern began to emerge, one that would raise questions about the effectiveness of the justice system and the measures in place to protect victims of crime. The person responsible for Rachel's kidnapping and rape was not finished yet, and in a horrific turn of events, Rachel was kidnapped again, and this time, her fate would be sealed. The circumstances of her second kidnapping are a stark reminder of the dangers she faced and the lack of protection she received from the justice system. The use of cinder blocks to drown her in a lake is a grim detail that underscores the brutality of the crime and the desperation of the perpetrator.
The fact that Rachel was kidnapped, escaped, and then kidnapped again, only to meet a tragic end, is a sobering reminder of the risks faced by those who have been victimized and the importance of providing them with the support and protection they need.
Gabrion lured Rachel to a remote area near Oxford Lake, a small body of water tucked inside the Manistee National Forest in Michigan's Lower Peninsula. He came prepared with cinder blocks and chains. Rachel's body was recovered from the lake after a search that had lasted several agonizing days. She was found bound to the cinder blocks and submerged beneath the surface. Investigators determined that Gabrion had chosen this location deliberately, far from witnesses and deep inside a vast stretch of federally managed woodland. The precise location of the killing on federal land, within the boundaries of a national forest, would become the single most important legal detail in the prosecution that followed. When Rachel disappeared, her infant daughter Shannon vanished along with her. An exhaustive search involving the FBI, the Michigan State Police, and local agencies failed to locate the child. Investigators came to believe that Gabrion may have killed the baby before or after murdering Rachel, but no remains were ever recovered and no physical evidence confirmed what happened to Shannon.
The disappearance of the baby added a devastating layer of grief for Rachel's family, especially her mother, who had been helping to care for Shannon in the weeks before Rachel was taken.
To this day, Shannon Timmerman has never been found, and her case remains classified as a missing person investigation. As investigators dug deeper into Gabrion's background and movements, they uncovered evidence suggesting he had killed other people connected to Rachel's case. Several individuals who could have served as witnesses against him either disappeared or turned up dead under circumstances that pointed directly back to Gabrion. Remains were discovered in waterways near areas he was known to frequent, echoing the method he used to kill Rachel. Federal prosecutors eventually concluded that Gabrion had carried out a deliberate campaign to eliminate anyone capable of testifying against him or placing him near the scene of Rachel's murder. The fact that Rachel's body was found inside the Manistee National Forest created a jurisdictional situation that changed the entire trajectory of the case.
Michigan abolished the state death penalty in 1846, making it one of the earliest English-speaking governments in the world to do so. No state court in Michigan could impose a death sentence regardless of the crime.
However, because the murder took place on federal land, the case fell under federal criminal statutes, where capital punishment remained a sentencing option. Federal prosecutors in the Western District of Michigan assumed control of the case from state authorities, and all proceedings moved to the federal courthouse in Grand Rapids. Gabrion's federal trial began in early 2002 in Grand Rapids. Prosecutors presented a methodical case built on physical evidence recovered from Oxford Lake, testimony from individuals who had seen Gabrion with Rachel shortly before her disappearance, and forensic analysis of the cinder blocks and restraints used to submerge her body. The defense argued that the evidence linking Gabrion to the murder was circumstantial, but the prosecution countered with the clear motive: Gabrion's need to silence the one witness who could send him to prison for rape, along with the trail of other missing and dead individuals connected to him.
After approximately 3 weeks of testimony and several days of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict for kidnapping resulting in death, a capital offense under federal law.
During the penalty phase of the trial, prosecutors outlined the full scope of Gabrion's criminal history and the premeditated nature of Rachel's murder. They emphasized that the killing was carried out specifically to prevent Rachel from testifying against him at his upcoming rape trial, and that the disappearance of baby Shannon demonstrated a chilling willingness to destroy anyone in his path.
The jury recommended the death sentence, and the presiding judge imposed it, making Gabrion the first person sentenced to death under federal law in the state of Michigan. Following sentencing, Gabrion was transferred to the United States Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana, the facility that houses federal death row inmates. In the years that followed his conviction, Gabrion filed multiple appeals challenging both the guilty verdict and the death sentence. His legal team raised objections regarding the sufficiency of the evidence, the composition of the jury, and the constitutionality of applying the federal death penalty in a state that had banned capital punishment more than a century and a half earlier.
The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals in Cincinnati reviewed these challenges and upheld the conviction and sentence on each occasion.
Gabrion remains on federal death row in Terre Haute as of the mid-2020s, and no execution date has been carried out.
Rachel Timmerman's family has borne the weight of her murder and Shannon's disappearance for nearly 3 decades. Her mother spoke publicly about the case after the trial, expressing gratitude that a conviction had been secured while making clear that the absence of answers about Shannon left a wound that no verdict could close. Victim advocacy organizations in Michigan have cited Rachel's case when arguing for stronger protections for witnesses in violent crime prosecutions, pointing to the gap between Rachel's cooperation with law enforcement and the lack of security measures that might have kept her safe.
In the Muskegon County area, awareness efforts and memorials have kept Rachel's name in the public conversation, and her case has been examined in multiple true crime documentaries focused on federal jurisdiction, the death penalty, and the failures of witness protection.
The Rachel Timmerman case remains one of the starkest examples in American criminal history of what can go wrong when a victim cooperates with the justice system but receives no meaningful safeguard in return. Rachel did everything right. She reported the crime, she agreed to testify, and she was building a life for herself and her daughter. Gabrion was able to reach her anyway, and by the time law enforcement understood the full danger he posed, Rachel and Shannon were both gone.
The federal death sentence handed down in Grand Rapids marked a rare legal outcome for a crime committed in Michigan, but for Rachel's family, the sentence was never the point.
The point was that Rachel and Shannon should still be alive.